Now, is that since freelance is a kind of a tough gig sometimes? Have you been in an unemployment position before, or is this your first time?
Yeah, this will probably be, I think, my second time. I'm trying to think. First time I was full time for many many years, like probably about 10 years, and that ended, and I had a lapse there before my first freelance gig. Then yeah, I guess thinking about it, I've had several lapses. I think the biggest lapse ever was 6 months. The second biggest would be this one, which has been 5 months. But as we'll talk about, I am now going to be gainfully employed starting on Monday. So yeah, but I definitely have had that struggle of lapses in between projects.
Yeah, so we'll definitely talk about that because that is awesome. What have you unemployment like many things is something that the first time you ever go through it, it feels. I mean, it's frightening. It pulls at you. It's difficult. What's something that you I don't know, some wisdom that you gain going through this time and time again? What's different about this time than perhaps the first time you had to go through it?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like automatically knowing my next steps. So automatically, as soon as you can file for unemployment, doing that. Also, making sure you have health coverage. So that's always been a big deal. Like figuring out whether you want to stick with Cobra or in California. We're fortunate enough to have covered California. So you can also look into that and figure out what's best bet for you. I think also always financially planning. I think maybe the first few goes at freelance, I wasn't in such a like financially secure place. Blessed to have been a bit more financially secure as I kept going on with my freelance career. But I think that's one thing too, contingent on wherever you might be on the financial spectrum. It's making sure you organize a budget and know what you're working with when you're unemployed. And then honestly, like always reconnecting with my network, tapping in with them, checking in on people, overall trying not to neglect that throughout the course of my career, but also like obviously honing in on that when unemployed.
Let's talk about the details of it for one moment, and then we'll dive into the broader part. You mentioned apply for unemployment right away, which
Yes.
is super important, and a lot of people put it off. And it's important to get that right away so that you get the benefits right away. You mentioned health coverage, which some people go with Cobra, like you said in California. There's Covered California, and being able to understand what you're going to be covered for and how quickly you can get that is very, very important. Tell me about the third one you mentioned, which is financial planning. What are some of the things when you're going into and you're like, oh man, like this might be a couple of months of unemployment? What are some of the things that you're thinking about? What are the lifestyle changes that you're thinking about? And where are you putting your efforts?
Yeah, definitely. I think the main one obviously is always like home and car payment. I think those are the two buckets contingent on whether you have, you're renting, you have a mortgage, or you do or don't have a car payment. I think those are the most important ones to check off the list. Then after that, there's other, supplemental but important like internet, cell phone, etc. that obviously still need to be put in the bucket. But even little simple things like for myself, this time knowing that we were in the middle of pandemic and not knowing how long it was going to, go on for, which now has been months. Like I made sure to call my cell phone coverage company to like decrease my plan, play around with my plan. Certain things, maybe like obviously we weren't allowed to eat out for a while, but tapping into that and cooking more at home, maybe working out more at home versus having like a gym membership, whether now during the pandemic or before. There was a lot of times where I was just kind of going for runs or bicycle rides outside because you know what, they're free. So that was like one important thing. Like obviously knowing the major bills that need to be paid, but then there's other ones that are maybe a bit more discretionary where you can remove or play around with.
So you'd call your phone company and renegotiate your plan for a little bit, yeah?
For the most part, like I'll take off extra items like insurance. I had one that had like a hotspot, like a premium hotspot for international travel. I'm like, well, that's probably not happening right now because you could use your phone internationally at a discounted rate, and then also it would serve as a hotspot. So I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. So don't need that. As long as I have Wi-Fi at home, I'm good. So yeah, so little things like that.
I love that. No, but I think being considerate of certainly like the bells and whistles and cutting the fat on that, like you said, maybe eat out a little bit less, but
Mm-hmm.
also knowing those big payments. I think a lot of people should actually go to their landlord and try to renegotiate rents where possible, because many landlords will say, sure, we'll push it back by a month, or we'll backload it to the end. So being thoughtful about the finances is super important.